The goddess Hylia was entrusted with guarding the Triforce left behind by the golden goddesses Din, Nayru and Farore. Yet, despite her devotion, she ultimately abandoned the relic, entrusting it instead to the ancient Zonai. Why would she take such a risk? And more importantly, why don't we see the Triforce of the Zonai in Tears of the Kingdom? It all starts with Skyward Sword. After suffering grave injuries in her battle of demise, Hylia chose to reincarnate as a mortal. But that wasn't her only reason. As a divine being, she couldn't wield the Triforce herself, so by surrendering her immortality, she protected the Triforce and laid the foundation for the royal family. But Hylia knew she couldn't rely on endless reincarnation, as gaps between her lifetimes would leave the Triforce vulnerable, so with hopes of protecting it permanently, she turned to the Zonai. Evidence for this lies within the three Lomei labyrinths. Inside, Link is addressed by the rulers of owls, dragons and boars, each offering trials of wisdom, courage and power. In his voice memories, Rauru even refers to them as guardians and explains that these rooms were built to pass judgment. Furthermore, within the Tears of the Kingdom masterworks, under the classification of ancient ruins related to the Zonai tribe, these mazes make a direct appearance. So why would the Zonai build them? Since the different virtues tested within are actually shared by the Triforce, the answer ties directly to Hylia's plan. This is made evident by the armor sets clearly designed after the elemental dragons. Since they once again represent wisdom, courage and power, the ancient rituals mentioned within the armor descriptions must refer to the trials of the Lomei labyrinths. Because the armor also originates from the Zonai, it points to three of their own kind undertaking these trials so that they could wield the individual pieces of the Triforce. Within the games, we're also told about draconification, an irreversible process that transforms the bearer into an immortal dragon by swallowing a secret stone. Nydra, Farore and Dinro strongly resemble the Zonai, unlike the light and demon dragons who retain their Hylian and Gerudo traits. Interestingly, on the backs of the elemental dragons reside marks which resemble the pieces of the Triforce. This would imply that the Zonai which underwent the trials must have swallowed their secret stones. However, there's a problem with this theory. In-game evidence shows the Zonai possess only 7 secret stones. So if draconification occurred long ago, where's the proof that more ever existed? Taking a closer look at the arm Link is given by Rauru, we can see 5 different rings. Since the sages are assigned a specific ring regardless of tempo order, the rings must have been deliberately designed, and thus one ring represents the equivalent of 1 secret stone. If we now take a closer look at Rauru's other hand, we can see an additional 4 rings. So, including his own secret stone, this implies that at least 10 existed. But why don't Rauru and Mineru know about any of this? According to the Tears of the Kingdom masterworks, the Zonai once lived on the surface and in the depths before ascending to the heavens. Only later, after a crisis of ruin, were they forced back down. If multiple generations of Zonai existed, the early dragon transformations could have been forgotten by their successors. This also gives reason to why Mineru speaks of draconification only as a legend. Though I'm interested in hearing your opinions down in the comments, and if you're enjoying these types of Zelda theories, be sure to subscribe. As immortal dragons, the Triforce could be protected indefinitely, but how did the Zonai get access to it in the first place? What we do know is that they were given the secret stones by the goddess Hylia. These secret stones are actually linked to the homeworld of the Triforce, the Sacred Realm. Throughout the series, sages could enter this realm through their temples, but Tears of the Kingdom shows that entry is not limited to these structures. This is made clear after Link defeats the demon dragon. As a radiant light envelops him, Link is transported into a world clearly outside of Hyrule. Though disoriented, this isn't his first visit. He has actually already been here 4 separate times. What these events have in common is the presence of sages, or more specifically the secret stones. This would mean that the stones themselves grant entry to this realm. Evidence for this being the Sacred Realm is found within Ocarina of Time. Here it is revealed that dead sages can manifest physically within. Going back to the ancient sage cutscenes, we see them appear precisely in this way. They preserved their physical presence so that their secret stones could one day be passed down to their descendants. By contrast, Sonia and Rauru remain only in spirit because neither had a stone to entrust. This also helps explain why Mineru never passed on her secret stone. Deprived of a physical body, she lingered only as a spirit bound to the Pura Pad. Her secret stone couldn't have been given away as it was bound within her spirit. But if the Zonai were able to access the Triforce through the Sacred Realm, why can we also see it with Zelda at the same time? Before unlocking her sealing power, Zelda lacked the needed courage, as shown when she cowers during the Yiga attack at Kara Kara Bazaar. The fact that the Triforce can only remain whole in someone who embodies balanced wisdom, courage and power makes it clear that if she held the Triforce then, it would have shattered immediately. It's only once Zelda began her training that she would eventually build that courage. Throughout the franchise, the Triforce has always been represented by a mark which appears in the wielder's hand. This mark is known to continue glowing as long as it remains with its wielder. But after using her sealing power, Zelda's mark disappears. This would suggest that Zelda is instead able to channel the power of the Triforce directly. Since we already established that the Triforce must reside within the 3 elemental dragons, there's good reason to believe that Zelda channels it from them. Further evidence of this comes from our visits to the 3 sacred springs.
I've pleaded to the spirits tied to the ancient gods.
If we look at the entries of the dragons within the Hyrule Compendium, we find out that they're described as spirits. This confirms that Zelda formed a connection and could therefore access the Triforce through them. This brings us back to Hylia's original plan. After the Triforce was safely protected, the rest of the Zonai rose into the heavens and guarded the remaining stones, only to eventually descend when resources dwindled. This descent marked the beginnings of Hyrule, where Zelda would meet Rauru and Sonia after traveling back in time. But what do you think? Did Hylia abandon the Triforce, or is there another answer? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.